I'm Brad Nessler, and welcome everybody to the 50th anniversary of the founding of the Peach Bowl. And now that I have you seated, I would like to ask you to rise for the singing of the national anthem by Tim Miller. Everybody, could you rise? And we'll turn it over to Tim.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
That's where you start things off, I would say. Yeah, I can't follow that. Again, welcome everybody. We were supposed to have a video right now of our MC for tonight. And he left it at home, apparently, I don't know. But I remember the great days as a Georgia Bulldog, and one of the greatest calls of my late great friend Larry Munson, who once said, "Oh my God, we're going to try to kick one 100,000 miles. And Butler, oh my God, oh my God." He's a former Georgia Bulldog. He was a Chicago Bear on a world championship team. First ever kicker inducted into the College Football Hall of Fame. Your host for tonight, and my friend, who's the only guy that could get me downtown on a Tuesday night when the World Series is starting, Kevin Butler.
I even forgot about the World Series.
Yeah.
Thank you, Brad. And I even forgot about the World Series because I'm totally into football, as I hope everybody is here also. And good evening. First of all, I would like to welcome you on behalf of all the Hall of Fame members here. We hope you enjoy your night here at one of the finest attractions in the city of Atlanta, and certainly a marketplace for the college football world. So we are in a very special place tonight. But I'd like to begin, first of all, by saying a sincere thank you to our sponsors. These firms and these individuals have played a key role in making tonight a success, and this celebration a success, and more importantly, supporting the Georgia Lions Lighthouse Foundation's mission to restore sight and sound to Georgia. The Ron and Vicky Family Foundation, the Coca-Cola Company Foundation, Home Depot, Merrill Lynch, Pierce, Finner and Smith, Smith and Howard, Miller Zell, the Buckhead Lions Club of Atlanta, Chick-fil-A Foundation, Northside Hospital, David M. Paul and Gary Mann, Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl Inc., the Atlanta Convention and Visitors Bureau, J. Cannon Carr, and United Distributors Inc., who made their donation in honor of Ron Kankarkas. So please join me in giving them a round of applause. Before we get moving tonight, I wanted to remind everybody about, as Brad did, our silent auction over here to the left. As you're going, please, we're going to have 4 quarters here. We're going to have some of Atlanta's greatest sportscasters interview some very special guests as we go through the history of the foundation, the Peach Bowl Foundation, and the Lighthouse Foundation and their relationship. I think it'll be very interesting. My involvement in this really opened my eyes to a lot of things that I didn't know, and that was really the inception of the relationship between these two organizations. But as you're looking around, as you can see everybody's table, we got 24 of the biggest and best schools that have generously donated authentic team helmets. And as you look around, all these teams that you see represented have played in the Peach Bowl. So if you have your alma mater out there and this is something that you would like to take home with you, they are certainly part of the auction tonight. It's a great collection for any team. So please don't miss out on your chance to bid on that as we keep going through the evening. We also, as everybody has tickets, in between each quarter, I'm going to draw a couple of raffle tickets and you'll win some nice prizes during that. So just to keep everybody involved in what's going on, we certainly appreciate your involvement. So as many of you know, the Peach Bowl has become one of America's biggest and most important bowl games. This year, it turns 50. That's 50 years of what Georgia loves the most, college football, and 50 years of Peach Bowl's support of Georgia's Lions Lighthouse Foundation. As not nearly enough people know, and I learned from my involvement with this great organization, the Georgia Lions Lighthouse Foundation is the only statewide provider of hearing and vision care for the uninsured Georgians. The Peach Bowl was founded by George Crumbly, one of Lighthouse's earliest supporters, in a bid to secure ongoing funding for the Lighthouse. Mr. Crumbly worked relentlessly to make the Peach Bowl successful, and we see where his fruits of his labor have taken us today, 1/2 a century later.
A lot of our patients are those who work for a living, 9 to 5 or sometimes more hours than that, but they simply just do not have the coverage in order to receive eyeglasses on their own. People who need their glass in order to function normal everyday lives. Sometimes people don't realize just how important it is or how fragile it can be until you find that you start not to be able to see. And then all of a sudden your world is turned upside down.
When George Crumley and 3 or 4 other people started this thing, the whole idea was that all the proceeds would go to the Lighthouse for the Blind.
George was a marketing and advertising guy and was a member of the Lions Club and said, okay, how can we help the brand of the Lions? How can we raise money for charity? And so he said, let's start a college football game.
Mr. Crumbly, he was just a wonderful man. He loved people and he loved doing things for the community.
My dad was constantly a fundraiser for the Lighthouse. When they went before the NCAA committee for the final approval, they said, okay, if we grant this charter today, who will be your first executive director? The other 2 men pointed to my dad, and that's how he became the first executive director.
This is the most passionate college fan base in the country right here in Atlanta. George had the mentality to say, let's take advantage of that and let's raise money for charity for the Lions Club.
What better way to reach more people and tell them about us, the Georgia Lions Lighthouse Foundation, and what we do, than to tie it in with a very popular bowl game. We can dramatically change someone's life, and it goes on from there.
Thank you. Cheryl Crumley Lee, who appeared in that video we just saw, is a staunch Lighthouse supporter and a passionate advocate for those in need. She also serves on the Lighthouse board and gives generously of her resources to advance the Lighthouse mission. Please join me in welcoming to the stage Cheryl Crumbly Lee. Thank you for being here. Sure. Would you like to sit down or do you want to?
Okay. I'm a short person.
Yeah, you can get up there. That's all right. I scared her when we first told her. She said, I'm going to pull you up here and we're going to ask you a little bit about your father and everything that went on in him developing this. And I asked her what song and dance she wanted to sing. And she quickly looked at me, and I knew I'd lost somebody, so I had to take that back very quickly. But I appreciate you coming up here to share a little bit about this. If you wouldn't mind, tell us how your dad initially got involved in the Lighthouse.
Very natural progression. Dad became a Lion in 1958.
You might have to hold it a little closer.
And as a Lion, Lions Club has a long tradition of involvement with vision issues dating back to 1925 when Helen Keller approached the Lions and challenged them to begin Nights for the Blind. So when Dad joined the Lions in 1958, the Lighthouse already existed, so he immediately jumped on board and got involved in fundraising. That was 1958. 1968, the first bowl game.
So they had applied 3 times for the bowl game without being sanctioned at first.
Yeah.
And what was that process like for him? Was it frustrating as it sounds?
Yes, very. What worked in my dad's favor, and the committee, this was not just one man, this were several Lions that were responsible for pulling this off. But my dad was a lifelong learner. He believed you learn from your failures and you never give up. You keep on trying. So they went back for a second time and a third time. They did learn that while they were very dedicated Lions, they didn't have football background. So they involved a gentleman by the name of Dr. Franzi Gutmann. Franzi was an ophthalmologist as well as a Lion, and he used to play for Purdue. He knew a lot of the athletic directors and head coaches, and his, I think, connections really made a difference in the bowl being granted. I think the other thing was this was the first ever charitable bowl game, so I think that really intrigued the committee.
Absolutely, and that is something that, the charity aspect of the Peach Bowl still runs bigger than any other bowl game out there today, so that was a great connection that they made. But
Absolutely.
He felt like he built a great team around him.
Oh, absolutely. He always believed in teamwork, and he never felt that, ego didn't have a place. It was the mission, It was the vision.
So do you recall your first Peach Bowl?
Oh, yeah.
Was it rainy and cold like most of them were back in the day?
Absolutely. Grant Field. And what most people don't know about the very first bowl game was the charter was granted in April of 1968 with the understanding and requirement that the first game would be played 8 months later in December. So this was an organization that had no organization that went from nothing to something in the course of 8 months.
When you look at it, because you've seen it from the inception, you knew what your dad had put into it, how he built the team around it. What amazes you about where it's at now?
Number one, I think it's fantastic and amazing, and my dad would be so proud, is so proud. Even when he was no longer involved in the Peach Bowl after the early 80s, he was a very strong advocate. And as I said, he believed in the mission, not even the name. I recall when a reporter came to him when the name changed from the Peach Bowl to the Chick-fil-A Bowl. I think the reporter was looking for a story. And he asked Dad how he felt about the name change. And Dad said, the name doesn't matter. The commitment to the mission, the charitable organization is what matters.
Well, spoken like a true person that put a lot of heart into it. During the, the late 80s, early 90s, there was a little bit of change, as you were talking about, going on. They kind of grew apart a little bit, but they've come back together to really form a bond that is very unique. And your father would be so proud of that right now.
He really would.
And
yeah.
you have such a great staff, and we'll be talking to some of Gary Stoken and some other people later about what they've done. But it is unbelievable that you have been able to create a relationship with a bowl game as the Peach Bowl that has such a charitable cause.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I think, you know, and this is part of the beauty of working with Gary Stoken. He reached back out to us several years ago and said, you know, how can we work more together? And so we brainstormed, and we're doing these wonderful vision screenings where we're involving football players, and kids just absolutely love having anything to do with football players. So we get the football players together and we do vision screenings, and through those screenings we're able to identify children that have very specific needs, and we're able to get them the help that they need.
Absolutely. Well, it is a wonderful cause. You have been involved with the Lighthouse Foundation for many years.
Yes.
It goes without saying again, but please tell us one more time, what does being involved with the Lighthouse mean to you beyond just a night like tonight?
Well, a night like tonight is special because it introduces us to so many people that may not be aware of the Lighthouse and the work that it does throughout the state of Georgia. So just knowing that at the very root of what we do is we bring vision and we bring hearing to individuals that could not afford it on their own makes all the difference in the world. And the benefit, I think, to our relationship is we get exposure we never would have had, and this certainly further cements the Peach Bowl as the nation's most charitable bowl. So we're very happy to be a part of that. And I wanted to take just 1 second, because so much of this would not be possible without the volunteers, the people that volunteer both for the Lighthouse and for the Peach Bowl. And I wanted to see if I could just see a stand of everybody that's been a volunteer for either organization.
If we could please have the volunteers stand up from the Peach Bowl and the Lighthouse. Thank you all.
Great. I think there are even more volunteers than that here, but she sat down too quickly. I did want to honor my mother here. She and my dad were married for 65 years, and I think she's the ultimate volunteer. They truly believed in supporting each other, whatever.
There we go.
Whichever took on something, they worked together to make it happen.
Congratulations, and thank you so much for what you've done.
One quick story, at age 91, she still is recruiting volunteers for Lighthouse, and she still works at the Lighthouse as a volunteer.
And it's got to be hard to say no to her.
Oh, absolutely.
I would imagine that right off the bat. So if she corners you tonight, you're going to be volunteering for something, I can promise you that. Well, thank you so much, Cheryl. Thank you for what your father's done. Appreciate your time to come up here and share your story with us.
Honored to be here.
And we certainly love having you involved at the Lighthouse.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. So, I think we're going to run a film here now before I introduce our next panel. So if everybody could take a look at the screen, we'll go to the second quarter of our presentation.
The Lighthouse was founded in 1949 by some Lions from Moultrie, Albany, and Atlanta.
3 Lions clubs came together to save one boy's sight with a sight-saving surgery. That was the birth of the Lighthouse. It was back then called Georgia Lighthouse for the Blind.
We were able to help people that otherwise would not be able to afford vision care. People are able to get eye exams by a doctor and or prescribed glasses. Surgeries such as cataract surgery, glaucoma, diabetic retinopathy. We partner with doctors across the state. Our other big service is the Hearing Services Department, and we partner with audiologists.
We have a clinic that's open 5 days a week. We make glasses next door. We have our reclaim and distribution center where all the glasses are bought in and also go out.
We do what we call a mobile clinic. We take our equipment, pack it in the van, and carry it to these mobile clinics across the state where they're providing the exams. We do the prep and the fitting of the glasses, and then the glasses come back here to be processed.
It's not any other organization like this. When we go out into the rural parts of Georgia, some of them never been to the eye doctor. I have a sister that's legally blind. So it really touches home for me to help people in this type of need.
My grandmother had glaucoma and my mother had glaucoma, and both of them eventually went blind. I'm just thankful for the opportunity to be able to get these services.
We go to schools to screen, and I remember one principal bringing this little third grader up to us to tell us the story about how he had been a typical problem child, and they had done everything they could with him, and then they had determined that he needed glasses. It just totally turned him around, and his behavior as well as his educational path. His whole life trajectory changed at that moment because he was able to see and therefore learn better.
People need to be able to see, hear, just so they can live and have the most normal life possible.
To be able to make sure they're able to maintain that level of independence is a gift to anyone, and being able to provide that service is a reward.
Wow. Well, I think we all realize how very lucky we are to have sight and sound to each and every one, but to be able to offer that opportunity to people that are less fortunate or people that just do not have that opportunity is something that I want to thank everybody here for being at, because tonight you're helping us raise money for a lens cutting machine that offers these glasses to everyone throughout the state of Georgia, and it is truly life-changing. I want to personally thank these gentlemen. I'm about to introduce a former coach and a former player, and these gentlemen are so generous for being with us tonight. I know they're extremely busy with their personal lives and dedicated members of their respective communities. And it says something very important that they are here with us tonight. It says that they recognize not only the Peach Bowl's ongoing importance to the economic health of our city, but it also that the urgently growing need among Georgians uninsured for the Lighthouse services. So now, without further ado, please help me welcome our mediator and our professional interviewer, Chuck Daddle. He's a young fellow that I work with now at the University of Georgia, and I love every minute of it. Former sports director of WSB TV Channel 2, host of the Bulldog Roundtable, and a sideline reporter for UGA. I'd like to also bring up Vince Dooley, former head coach of the University of Georgia football team, and an inductee to both the Georgia Sports Hall of Fame and the College Football Hall of Fame. Welcome, Coach Dooley. And he still intimidates me. I just want y'all to know that. I hope I said that right, Coach. And most of all, I'm very pleased to be able to introduce Warwick Dunn. Warwick, the former Tampa Bay Buccaneer, former Atlanta Falcon, and founder of the Warwick Dunn Charities and its Homes for the Holidays program. There is nobody that gives more back than this young man right here. So please help me welcome them to the stage.
Well, thank you, Kevin. Appreciate that. And I can't tell you how happy I am to be here tonight. As a native Atlantan, I have to tell Cheryl, my mother worked just up the street here at Atlanta Federal, and one of her favorite customers was George. And he would come in. I remember my mother coming home and telling me, one of my customers, George Crumley, says that we're going to get a bowl game in Atlanta. I said, well, that's never going to happen. And she said, you don't know George. And 50 years later, look where we are, and this is terrific. And I'm glad to see you here tonight, and what a great time. And as a native Atlantan, take a lot of pride in this bowl, no question about it. Coach, you and I were talking yesterday briefly about the Peach Bowl and what it had meant to college football. There was reference made to some of the weather that we suffered through in the early years. You were telling me a great story about your brother Bill coaching in this game.
Yeah, but I too have to pay my respects to Mrs. Crumley and to George, because I thought he was the nicest and the greatest PR man that I've ever known. Bob Hope was number 2, I might add. So I've got wonderful, fond memories of him. I went to the third Peach Bowl, which was played in Grant Field, and it was my brother's team, North Carolina, versus Arizona State. And North Carolina did very well in the first half. And then in the second half, snow came, and it kept coming, and it kept coming, and the winds kept blowing, and Arizona State running backs ran faster as the snow fell. So by the end of the third quarter, Arizona State had completely taken control of the football game. I have never been so cold. I got into a side of an alley where the wind was blowing, and there's no way North Carolina had a chance to win. So I stood up and saluted my brother and told him that he did a nice job, but I'm getting the hell out of here. So I left the game at the end of the third quarter and went home.
Warwick, you, since you've been with the Falcons and one of the all-time greats, and I know you never got the opportunity to play in the Peach Bowl, but you've certainly followed it through the years, being the great college football fan that you were and the great star that you were at FSU. And the Seminoles have a great tradition in this game.
Yeah, until recently, until Alabama. But over the years, just supporting Florida State, I've had the opportunity to attend games, be a captain and so forth, and I just love the tradition. And because we're close proximity, it's definitely created a lot of atmosphere. A lot of Seminoles are in Atlanta, so I think it's been really great for us as Florida State Seminole supporters to be able to come and experience the greatness of what Atlanta has to offer through the Peach Bowl.
As a player, what does it mean to you when you get to go to a city like Atlanta and participate in a big-time bowl game?
Well, I just think guys look forward to it. When you play a game here, you're on a national stage, and to be on a national stage, you get to play in front of thousands and millions of people. I think guys always want to play at their best and be their best and showcase their skill set, and this venue gives them that opportunity to do that.
Coach, what about coaching in a game like this? Coaching in a Peach Bowl in a city like Atlanta?
Well, I only had one experience. That was in '73. We played Maryland, and it was a great experience because we won the game. And that makes a tremendous difference as to the experience that you have. We had a little halfback named Jimmy Poulos, called him the Greek Streak, and he won the game by catching a screen pass and going about 65 or 70 yards for a touchdown. So from my experience as a player, I was here as an athletic director on 3 or 4 other occasions, of which most of them were not too good.
You know, we've been blessed in this city with great leadership and drive. Speaking of George, and I know Gary Stokin here tonight, and Gary told me at one point that he wanted to see Atlanta become the college football capital of the world. And I don't think that there's any doubt that this year that is exactly what we are, if we're not each and every year.
Well, I'll say a word then. Warwick and I have 2 things in common. He was a high school option quarterback, and I was a college high school option quarterback. But after that, Warwick has done things as an athlete that's absolutely amazing, but far beyond the football field and what he's been able to do is what you have done with this foundation, and everybody appreciates that and are proud of you. What was the question?
It wasn't really, I was just talking about Atlanta now being the college football.
Look, one of the greatest tests of any player, any organization, any coach, or anything is the test of time. And there's no greater example than surviving the test of time than the Peach Bowl. To go with the struggles that came to this bowl early on, I think the good Lord must have been testing the Peach Bowl because there were some struggles, as you know. But to reach this point after 50 years and to have the national championship here in the bowl game is a tribute to a lot of people, Gary and many, many others that are volunteers. This is just something that's inspiring to anybody.
Yeah, 4 different venues I think we counted up, from Grant Field to Atlanta Fulton County Stadium to the Georgia Dome, and now Mercedes-Benz. 4 different venues for this great bowl game. And certainly, as you point out, the weather tested it early on. Warwick, you as a college football fan now and following the sport, how excited are you to see the national championship game come into this city?
Well, it's exciting overall, economic impact for the city, but to be able to have the biggest game on the biggest stage at the perfect time of the year, beginning of the year, I think it's exciting for not just myself, but for everyone. As a player, this is what guys play for. You play a season, prepare, and play a season to get to this moment to be in a national championship game. But not just this year, they're hosting the game, but also future years having playoffs and so forth. So the Peach Bowl is a huge stake in the college football game overall. So it's exciting.
Well, we're not, I think the countdown clock, we saw it coming in. So it's counting down, not far off. Warwick, thank you for being here tonight. Coach, I was glad I was able to, I was his Uber driver down from Athens tonight. So, but
we left at 2 o'clock this afternoon.
Well, we wanted to make sure we beat that Atlanta traffic, didn't we? So, but thanks, and again, you know, a huge salute to 50 great years for this bowl game, for what it's meant to this city, for what it's meant to so many people with sight and hearing problems, and of course for what it means to college football. And our thanks to everyone for being here tonight. Gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Go Peach Bowl.
Thank you, Chuck. Awesome. Awesome, buddy. Thank you. Thank you, Chuck. Thank you, Warren. Thank you, Coach Dooley. How about another round of applause for those guys? If we had more time, I'd have jumped up and asked a couple of questions, but I really just want to say thank you to Warwick. I heard the number, and you might be able to make sure it's correct, but it's like 160 homes, 155 homes he has provided for families, which is just incredible. And we certainly appreciate your presence here tonight. Thank you so much. All right, well, that takes us to our conclusion of our second quarter. As we finish up the halftime, I'd like to introduce the Lighthouse Board Chair, Mark Wrights, to present their Beacon of Hope Award. Mark?
Thank you, Kevin. Every year, the Lighthouse recognizes an optometrist or an ophthalmologist in Georgia whose commitment to vision care in his or her community is truly outstanding. This year, there were many wonderful nominees, but one stood out above all of the others. Her devotion to her community is well documented. She has the adoration of all of her patients and staff, and we heard over and over just how gently and respectfully she treats everyone seeking treatment, regardless of their ability to pay. She practices at the LJ Walmart Vision Center and is a graduate of the Southern College of Optometry in Memphis, Tennessee. Please join me now in congratulating the Lighthouse's 2017 Beacon of Hope Award winner, Dr. Melanie Clemens.
Thank you very much. I feel very honored to contribute to a community that I love so much. I hate it when I get emotional. I can't do what I do if I didn't have the support of my Lions Club. They are a very active group, very compassionate and very giving. They send me people who have been selected that are really in need. Most really express a lot of gratitude when they come in. A few stories of patients that you help. I have a person that I see on a regular basis, and he's diabetic. And when he first presented to me, he was just sent for a routine eye exam, and he was already 2,200 in one eye, which is considered legally blind. And then in his other eye, he was having a diabetic episode and couldn't even see the big E on the chart, which is 2,400. And he's under the age of 50. And I was like, oh my goodness, this man is going to be legally blind, and there's only so much I can do. We sent him to a retinal specialist, and our office sponsored his visit, and the Lighthouse jumped in and paid for him to have laser surgeries. There's not much they can do for his eye that was already legally blind, but in the eye that he was having the diabetic episode where he could only see the big E, he now sees 20/30, which means he would be legal to drive and he's able to do the stuff that he wants to do. And that's huge, yes. So that prevents him from being on disability. He can be active and he can see. We have stories like that often, maybe not that severe, but what you do is very, very important. I want to recognize my Lions Club and the people that are here tonight. They have just been super supportive, like, what do you need and how can we help you? And Bill Linemiller, will you please stand up with your wife, Mary? He drops by all the time. Everyone knows who he is. We know if we need a phone call, we can call him. And he's worked out, I work inside a Walmart. I don't own my optical. And they worked out how to do billing and everything, and it's just been a great experience. And then Peggy Dinsmore, please stand up. She's the president of our Lions Club, and she has just contributed so much time and effort. So, and then my office manager is here, who was kind of instrumental in getting the information for me to be nominated without my knowledge. Tracy, please stand up. And my husband, Rob, who supports me all the time. So thank you very much. So thank you for what you do and for being so supportive, and I feel blessed to be a part of this organization. Thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations. Can I get a picture of you? Congratulations. I want to thank, as you can hear, it's all about networking. And Dr. Clemens just told you about her network and certainly how the Lighthouse helps that out. And everybody here tonight certainly helped that out. I'd like to thank your whole group as you introduced your husband. He was very worried when he stood up that he was going to mess up the film. So he did a very good job of that. Very good. But I'd also like to thank Warwick for the contribution of those tickets and enhancing the package as we went along. We really appreciate that. So if you go there and you see your team there, you're going to have a great day. So we appreciate that. Thank you so much. Now it's time to get to the third quarter, the game. Let's watch.
It's one of the greatest sports business case studies that's ever been written.
George Crumley had just started in 1968 and I volunteered.
Bobby Dodd Stadium, that was a cold, cold facility. That first year I worked, it started off with a mild kind of a mist, and then that mist turned into a little bit of snow. We left Bobby Dodd in 1970 and went over to the Atlanta Fulton County Stadium, and we were there until they built the dome. Well, in the stadium, you could bet your life that on Peach Bowl day, it was going to be 33, 34 degrees with the rain blowing sideways.
We had a problem selling tickets, to be truthful.
In 1985, the bowl struggled. Dick Bestwick, who was in my position, said we need the support of the business leaders. He went to the Chamber of Commerce where Jerry Bartles was the president, and Ron Allen, who was the CEO at the time of Delta, said we're going to write the first check, $100,000. Getting the other business leaders involved in the community from the Chamber really helped set a baseline that the bowl could build on. We moved into the Georgia Dome in 1992, which took weather out of the issue. We signed a deal with ESPN in 1992 that put us on national TV. And then we inked a deal in 1993-94 with ACC and SEC to now link the two rival conferences in the Southeast against each other every year. Thanks to ESPN putting us on prime time New Year's Eve every year, we became a must-see bowl game, had great TV ratings. Thanks to the ACC and SEC relationship, we went on a run of 17 straight sellouts. In 1997, when Chick-fil-A signed on as title sponsor of their first game, that elevated us even further. We grew with Chick-fil-A's growth. And then in 2008, we created the Chick-fil-A kickoff game.
Now, I mean, every year is a good year.
The Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl now has grown to be one of only 6 bowls who are on the top of college football. Lighthouse is very influential in helping us meet our mission, which is to be the #1 charitable bowl game in the country. Thanks to 1968, the Lions Club, making this game happen.
I never dreamed that we'd be giving that much money to charity and to the colleges and to the Lighthouse. I mean, it's special. I love being a part of that.
Sharing this with us this quarter about the team selection process, I'd like to bring up Bill Hartman Jr., a 35-year broadcast veteran, Regional Emmy Award winner, and member of the Atlanta Sports Hall of Fame. One coach that I never got to play for, but I sure would have liked to, Lehman Bennett, former head coach of both the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and our Atlanta Falcons, and Ken McQuilkin, former Falcon and former Washington Redskin. You're going to learn a little bit about the inside doings of the selection committee. So, gentlemen, the stage is yours, Bill.
Thank you, Kevin, and what a pleasure it is for me to be here tonight, because I've watched the Peach Bowl grow from those cold nights, both at Bobby Dodd Stadium and Atlanta Fulton County Stadium, into one of the premier bowls in the nation now. And boy, having a national championship associated with the Peach Bowl is just going to be something. These two gentlemen have been part of the selection committee for the Peach Bowl for an awful long time. And Lehman, one thing I would like to know is, what do you think, and you've been with the bowl for many, many years now, what makes the Peach Bowl the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl so special?
Well, I started in 1987 working with the Peach Bowl. At that time, we had a very difficult time of getting teams to play, it's already been mentioned, of selling out the stadiums, and so we struggled at first. But Gary touched on most of the things that's made the Peach Bowl so successful. And that's been, of course, moving into the Dome, Chick-fil-A. Something he left out, I think is very important to us, though, is that it's been mentioned that Atlanta is the hub for college football. And I think the popularity right now of college football is at a peak. And that's the other thing that's really helped our bowl.
It's been a sensational run for the Peach Bowl, and you helping to select teams has been one of the reasons. Kim McQuilkin quarterback for the Falcons and the Redskins. He joined up because he wanted one of those nice blue blazers that he could wear to college football games.
He hadn't earned it yet.
Bill, let me interrupt you a second, because just quickly, Warwick and I were talking before the show started, that whole new back shoulder throw that,
which wasn't invented when you played.
No, and my completion percentage would have been way up because I was always hitting the back shoulder, that. So I'm trying to hit Warwick on the back shoulder here.
Whoa!
See? We got another.
Hey,
All right.
there you go.
All right.
Kim, in the early days in what year did you start in the selection committee?
Gary, what year did you start? Gary Stoken. 95?
85.
Oh, 85. No, I meant as head of it. 98, so I started in 96.
When you went to scout these teams, what were you looking for? What would you think would be the perfect fit to bring a team to Atlanta?
Yeah, we were, it's funny, we were called Scouts of the Bowl, but we were really relationship builders. We really weren't analyzing, would this be a good offense or a great team to bring to the bowl. We were really looking to build the relationships with the athletic department, with the alumni associations. So our job was more ambassadors of the bowl than it was really scouting the teams, although we showed up as scouts and we were in the press box. But, and I think Lehman would bear this out. And by the way, Lehman has been chairman of the team selection committee. I was vice chair of the team selection committee for a lot of years until we made ourselves obsolete by moving up to the national playoff championship. But I was his vice chair for about 16, 17 years, and I played for Lehman. And it was much more fulfilling for me being the vice chair to Lehman's leadership on the team selection committee, because when I played for him on the Falcons, he never put me in a game. So it was a whole lot more fun on the bowl side.
Well, let me add too. Back in '87, we started recruiting, and that's what it amounted to at that time. We had to recruit the teams to come to the bowl. And the first question, or a question that we always had to ask, is how many fans can you bring? Because we were having trouble reaching payouts and that type of thing that we had promised, and we had to know how many fans they would put in the stadiums. We soon got beyond that. Chick-fil-A came on board, and a lot of good things happened to us with television, and Gary has mentioned all of that, and that's really what has grown the bowl as much as anything, along with getting inside from that outside stadium of wading around the mud.
But you know what? If you hadn't done the job you did, and Kim, you did, it wouldn't have led to Chick-fil-A coming on board, and it wouldn't have led to this being a national championship game. I mean, the backbone, it was there. And when you started, did you believe it would ever get to this point?
Well, that was kind of a goal. We had ambitions at that time to continue to move up, and I don't know what, there's 32 bowls now, I think it is right now, and there wasn't that many at that time. We were probably 18th or 19th as far as other coaches looking at our bowl game, and it was important to move up one step at a time, and that's basically what we've achieved through the years.
And you did. And Kim, when you looked at a team, did you ever consider, well, this offense will play well on television, or this offense will bring a lot of people into the stands?
You were always looking for marquee players. There were always players that were great on TV and sold tickets, whether it was a high-powered offense or a really great defense, and the players that were part of that was in the mix. But as I said before, it was more about building relationships and, can we really get this school to bring 20,000 people or bring 30,000 people? And one of the most fulfilling things, Lehman, I think you'll back this up. I mean, when we were scouting 20 years ago, and we really weren't in the national picture, when we would go out on campuses and we go to Alabama and we go to Clemson and we go to South Carolina and Georgia, we were just another bowl. But I will tell you, in the last 10 years, or so, when we showed up with our Blazers, that's a good-looking blazer you got there, Coach.
The sport coat I have.
I forgot mine. But when we showed up in the last 10 years, it's been really fulfilling that, oh, you're the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl. Oh, and people would, the presidents of the universities would look us up. The athletic directors would look us up. The Brad Nesslers of the world, the announcers on CBS and ABC would invite us to be halftime guests on the TV show. And so we saw that evolution of the value that the bowl built, and I think that's probably the most fulfilling part of it.
And has been pointed out, again, about, 12 or 13 years ago when Chick-fil-A came on board and we got inside the dome playing and that type of thing, we signed a contract with the ACC and the SEC, which guaranteed us a sellout every week. We didn't have to worry about how many people you were going to bring, and we didn't have to ask that question because the stadium was full. And that is really what has propelled the bowl to what it is today.
Yes, it has. And these two men were with all the other volunteers for the Lions Club and the Lighthouse through the years, backbone of what has become, this year for sure, premier bowl game in the nation. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Bill,
and thank
thank
all
you.
of the volunteers.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Coach Bennett. Thank you, Kim. Great to see you guys. I was lucky enough to be on the selection committee for a few years, and the process it goes back to the word I just talked about earlier, networking. And when you're trying to build up something special, you put these men out there in front of people, they're going to build a great network, and certainly they have, and we're going to culminate that with the fourth quarter. Well, as we start the fourth quarter, let's take a look at the next and closing film.
It's the 50th anniversary of the Peach Bowl, the 50th anniversary of our partnership in the Peach Bowl having the success that it's had. This allows me every day that I'm involved with the Lighthouse to continue to feel my dad's presence.
His dedication and devotion is there. It's like being with family.
We work with Lighthouse throughout the year with our Chick-fil-A kickoff teams and our Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl teams, where we go back into the market and we do vision screening for the Atlanta Public School System.
I'm a believer in that because I knew the charity and I knew what it did. George thought that college football was big in the South and that there was a way to make it work for us. We're either the third or fourth largest convention in Atlanta based on how many people we bring here and what they spend.
This year, there's no doubt that Atlanta is the college football capital of the world. And it's all because George Crumbly started this organization back in 1968.
What better way to reach more people and tell them about us, Georgia Lions Lighthouse Foundation, and what we do, than to tie it in with a very popular bowl game. We can dramatically change someone's life, and it goes on from there.
Well, we're nearing the end of our program tonight, and we'll wrap up things with the fourth quarter with a look at the future of both the Peach Bowl and the Lighthouse. At this time, please help me welcome Brad Nesler, the current lead play-by-play announcer for SEC football games on CBS and former sportscaster at ESPN, ABC, and the NFL Network. Gary Stokin, President and CEO of the Peach Bowl, Inc., and one of Atlanta's business community's best and most dedicated leaders. And William Pate, CEO of the Atlanta Convention and Visitors Bureau. Please help me welcome these guys here as they go over what the future looks like and how bright it really is.
Thank you, Kevin. I did 4 Peach Bowls on radio back in the day. The first one was in '82, Tennessee and Iowa. There was 50,134 people there at Fulton County Stadium. I'm not old enough for Grant Field. '83, Florida State, North Carolina. First time I met Coach Bowden. There was 25,648 people there. Then Virginia and Purdue in '84. There was 41,107. And then I did that Army, Illinois thing that you just saw a little while ago. And kind of like Coach Dooley, even though I didn't know either one of the coaches that well, I waved at both of them at halftime and said, "I'm so cold, I'm getting the hell out of here." But anyway, there was 29,857 people at that one. And Gary, that's, I think, when you and I first met. And we said, is there going to be another Peach Bowl? And thank goodness Dick Bestwick and Ron Allen and some of those guys you mentioned got together and said, we're not only going to have another Peach Bowl, we're going to have a whole bunch of Peach Bowls.
Well, it's a great point, and we've talked about George and what he did to start the game, but Jerry Bartles is out here. And so, Jerry, are you still here? Jerry, stand up. Let us give you, back there in the back. Jerry Bartles was instrumental in keeping the bowl game here in Atlanta when after that 1985 game, Dick Bestwick said, you know, we're not going to make it. We need the business leaders to get involved. And Jerry Bartles was the leader to take the game into the chamber, and Ron Allen wrote the first check. And Bob Coggin, who's not here, is still on our board, is, I think, 80 years old. He was the CMO at Delta, and he hit every vendor that Delta had up for tickets and sold 3,300 tickets. And that really elevated us to keep us in business. And then we moved into the Georgia Dome, and thank God Diane Robinson of the Robinson family was sitting in the crowd in 1996 with Kentucky and Clemson, and it was about half full, and she hit Steve and said, Steve, I think you could probably help them here, get Chick-fil-A involved. So Diane Robinson's another one who's here. Diane, stand up. Diane was the impetus to get Chick-fil-A involved. So there's a lot of people out here. Albert Tarica, you've seen on the video, but Albert Tarica is a former chairman and 49-year veteran volunteer of the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl. So Albert, stand up, please. William Pate was a former chairman, and so was Lehman Bennett. So there's a lot of people out here that have done a lot. I see Mark Vaughn out there who really got us involved with the Marriott and helped us tremendously. We're still at the Marriott Marquis. So my point is there's so many people in this crowd and so many people in the city of Atlanta. This, to me, is one of the greatest stories in sports in the city of Atlanta for all the corporations that have involved themselves in the bowl game, all the people out here. You've probably all, if I asked you to raise your hand if you bought tickets to the game, you've supported us and kept us in business. And here we are 50 years later in the same sentence as the rose, the sugar, the orange, and the cotton that are 82 to 102 years old. And here's the little Peach Bowl that now Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl that's 50 years old, and we're hosting national championship games and semifinal games.
And William, what it does to the city of Atlanta is pretty remarkable from the Convention and Visitors Bureau standpoint, right?
It absolutely does. I'll just say I was at that 1985 Peach Bowl as well, and I thought that was for sure the last one I was ever going to be at. But no, it's great. You know, it's really been a great story for the city. We have a wonderful sports franchise, and we're seeing that come to fruition over the next 3 years with the College Football Championship, the Super Bowl, and the Final Four. And the great thing about sports, and the Chick-fil-A Bowl is a perfect example, it was played on New Year's Eve. We're not doing any business on New Year's Eve in Atlanta. And so to be able to bring 50, 60,000, 70,000 people into the city, John Grant's over here with the Celebration Bowl, is played on December 16th. Is anybody traveling for business December 16th? They're not traveling to Atlanta either. And we're going to have 50,000 people here the week before Christmas. So that's all incremental to the business. As great as things are going in the city, the wonderful thing about sports events is they're typically on the weekends, they're typically on holidays, and it also brings people to Atlanta that might not have a reason to come. And so then they go back and they tell their friends, gosh, I was in Atlanta for the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl, we had so much fun, and then they tell their friends and then they come. So it's an impact that continues to magnify.
I said that I did 4 of them on radio. I think I did 3 on TV. And I think Paul McGuire, Bob Greasy, and I became the first broadcast trio to wear tuxedos on a New Year's Eve for a Peach Bowl. But something that Cheryl said earlier, and it was a long time ago because she was up here, you know, you said your dad wasn't as involved by the early 80s. As far as I'm concerned, your dad was involved until the day he wasn't around with us anymore. I just wanted to tell you that, and Miss Crumley as well, and Steve Robinson and the Catholic family and everybody. So what's the future? I mean, we're in the New Year's Six mix. Every year it's going to be a big game. Not necessarily always a championship game, but always in the hunt.
Well, I think the Chick-fil-A kickoff game has really changed college football, and we started that back in 2008. We've been followed by Houston and Dallas and Orlando and Charlotte now. So we'll continue to grow that. We do a golf tournament over at Reynolds Plantation where we give $800,000 in charity and scholarship donations by bringing the college coaches in to play with an alumnus from each of their schools. I know Chuck Dowdle and Mark Fox keep telling me they want me to start a college basketball doubleheader here in the city. So there's Chuck clapping away. Yeah, I think we've got to renew our CFP contract, which will come up in January. So if we can do that, we'll have another 6-year contract that will include 2 semifinal games. So that's most important on the horizon.
William, this is the city to be for sports, no matter what the case is with the Falcons game the other night against the Patriots. But the future's bright for what we're doing with all this.
Well, it really is. And I mean, you know, we talk about the Peach Bowl in '68 really, you know, coming in with the Falcons and the Braves and really kicking off sports in Atlanta. And you look at where we are now, we're going to have the 3 biggest sporting events in the country back to back to back. One of the only cities in the country to have that. We'll certainly bring another college football championship here before the end of the decade, and at least one more men's Final Four. And we just announced we're going to host the MLS soccer game next year. So the sporting events keep coming. We all know how great this city is. It's a championship city. It's built to entertain folks from around the world to come here. And don't forget World Cup, because we'll be involved in that bid too. And you can bet with that jewel that we have here now, we'll be a part of that as well.
So the upcoming Peach Bowls, the national championship, the Super Bowl, Final Four, and a whole bunch more to come. We're past the fourth quarter, and
we're in overtime.
Some of the fourth quarters I've done in the last month. Let's see, 59-0, 41-0, 48-7. I think it's time to wrap it up and give it back to Kevin, pretty much, because I know we got a couple of awards to give out. Thanks everybody for showing up. Thanks, fellas.
Thank you, Brad. Gary? Yes, you can call a
Okay.
timeout. You are in charge.
Couple things. One is we have our staff here. Our staff's the best bowl staff in the business. David Epps, Chris Hughes, Dan West is here. So let's give them a round of applause. What they do to put on this game. 2 kickoff games over Labor Day. And then secondly, my wife is here. She's going to kick me in the shins for announcing her, but please give my wife Tia a round of applause. She lets me do all this stuff. And lastly, on behalf of Peach Bowl Inc. and Chick-fil-A, I'd like to call up Jim Irvin from Lions Club International, Carolyn Crumbly, and Cheryl Crumbly Lee to come up. And I'm going to get down here. I told Bob Hope, congratulations for Bob Hope and Kevin Butler for putting this on, but on behalf of both Chick-fil-A and Peach Bowl Inc., we want to present a $50,000 check to Lions Lighthouse and present that to Miss Crumbly on behalf of George and all that he did to make the bowl so special. So here you go, Miss Crumbly. How are you? You're welcome. You're welcome. Good to see you.
Thank you. Thank you,
Well,
man.
time
No,
out.
I appreciate it.
We didn't use any of our time out.
That was awesome. Well, thank you, Gary. My goodness, that is that's the support that we've been talking about all night. You talk about networking. This bowl has as good as network as any bowl game out there, and certainly we have the best supporters. I'd like to thank, first of all, before we get into our final wrap up with a couple of more awards, I want to thank our guests, Warwick, Coach Dooley, Kim, Chuck Daddle, Bill, and Brad, and William. When I had to ask Chuck and Bill and Brad to come and do that, that was very intimidating to me, because when I grew up in Atlanta, I just wanted to be mentioned by them on the evening news in high school, or make sure that it wasn't something bad going on. So it was really a pleasure for me to have these guys here tonight, and I think it made the program so much better. And right now, I want to bring, see, we're going to get, hold on one second, I'm losing my spot here. We're going to do some more awards. Come back up here. We've got a couple of more to get out. Trying to get here. We'll make it. We'll make it. Here we are. Now we're going to end up with the board chairman. Mark Rice is back up here, as you saw me behind me, to present the Pioneer Awards for visionary contributions to the Lighthouse.
Thank you, Kevin. It's been a wonderful evening, hasn't it? Hope everyone has enjoyed it as much as I have, and the Lighthouse staff for bringing it to you. At this time, I would like to recognize 3 individuals whose contributions to the Lighthouse have made a world of difference for thousands of Georgians with failing sight and hearing. Without these individuals and their extraordinary foresight, creativity, and leadership, the Lighthouse simply would not be doing what we do today to help those that are in need. We've already heard so much about him and his family, but the first Pioneer Award goes to the family of George Crumbley. The second Pioneer Award goes to Executive Vice President and former Chief Marketing Officer of Chick-fil-A, Steve Robinson. Steve has enjoyed a long and successful career with Six Flags Over Georgia, Texas Instruments, and now Chick-fil-A. He is an extremely active member of the Atlanta community and serves on several local boards, including the National Football Foundation. He also holds a master's in advertising from Northwestern University. And if you've ever wondered who's the mastermind behind the Chick-fil-A Eat More Chicken Cow campaign, it is Steve. Please join me in congratulating Steve Robinson as our second Pioneer Award winner. And last but in no way least, a man whose support of the Lighthouse is unwavering and absolute, and whose actions via the Peach Bowl on behalf of the Lighthouse have shown unmistakably the power of football to be a force for good. Please join me in congratulating Gary Stoken. As he runs from the back.
You're coming back up here, huh?
And I have one final award tonight. Hasn't Kevin done a wonderful job being our MC? Kevin has chaired this committee putting this event together tonight, and even though his 8 o'clock committee meetings were a little rough for some of us to make it, but anyways, Kevin, on behalf of the Lighthouse, I believe.
Oh, wow, a picture of me.
Well,
yeah, that's me. When I was young. Thank you. Thank you, Mark. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. As we wrap this up, I just need to, as every person that knows that has done a charitable event, there's 4 ladies that I want to recognize: Lindsay, Donna, Chelsea, and Kate. They are the mastermind and the workforce behind everything. So please, they're in the back, but they have done an unbelievable job. They work relentlessly for the Lighthouse Foundation, and you can be assured that your money is in great hands, and we certainly appreciate your support. I want to congratulate Steve Robinson. Steve's a dear friend. He's my closest Auburn friend. He's my only Auburn friend, but he's my closest Auburn friend. But no, him and his wife have been dear friends, and I can't tell you how much it means to us to have you here tonight, because your effort in the Peach Bowl and growing this through the Chick-fil-A has brought us to where we are today. So we really appreciate your time tonight. Thanks for being here. On behalf of the host committee and the Lighthouse, I want to thank each and every one of you for coming tonight to support us and to share the history of the Peach Bowl and the Lighthouse. Hopefully you will be a champion for the Lighthouse and their mission to provide the gift of sight and sound to those who need. It is very powerful to be able to give back, and I think you saw that by Dr. Clemens, her emotion of just helping people. Could you imagine for one moment not having your sight, not having your sound? It would be a different world. But when we come together, we can change worlds, and we can provide a lot of great things to people. And it all starts with networking, and I appreciate y'all being part of our network tonight. I'd like to thank the host for the chats. I appreciate y'all coming. I appreciate everybody's involvement. Warwick, thank you so much for your support, and congratulations on all the work that you do in your charity. It's a great example for all professional athletes. Thank you again. If you've won auction, or if you have some auction items, please go back in the back and check out. And we wish you all a good night and a safe travels home. Thank you so much for being here.